I want to first of all
Yeah,
welcome you to Financial Express and FE Leisure.
thank you.
And I'll tell you why we are doing this interview. This is because, as per our research, we realized a lot of people still don't know what LGBTQAI stands for. They're educated, but still they don't know. They feel that it's not okay to belong to a community. And this in this series, which is called Beyond Boundaries, I am going to speak to people who can educate them and who can probably influence people and let them know, that what's right and what's not. So just to begin with, I would want to start with the basics. Can you explain to my viewers what LGBTQAI plus stands for?
I think what is very important right now, I think we're going through a phase because now even beyond LGBTQIA, there are other, like a lot of people insist on H, which also stands for Hijra, which is saying that it's not the same as being trans. So I feel more than getting into the nitty-gritties of every small letter, which is ever expanding, I think it's just important to understand the huge spectrum as queer identities of people who practice, it could be people from different, who identify as different gender, either physically or even psychologically, which is being something very important that is being discussed today, or people who have different sexual preferences. Yeah,
Right.
broadly speaking. And I feel that everything that we put under this spectrum comes out apart from this. But having said that, I think today even people are trying to question what is different. Okay, what is different, because who decides that, okay, this is the main, sphere of things and this is alternate? No, we are, what one is trying to say is that we are just like the rainbow. Okay, and
Right.
and it is not that we are just one tiny minority that has been portrayed as. It's probably much more, and it's something that is not often acknowledged, and because it's been marginalized. And so it's basically, I feel, looking at yourself. I mean, I think the straight community needs to start looking at itself as just one color of the spectrum and realize there are other beautiful colors, and you accept all the other colors as equally important and equally beautiful.
You beautifully put it together. I also want you to let my viewers know, how do you identify yourself as?
I identify myself, I think I have different identities, and out of which, being human is the most important identity, you
Most
know.
important.
Absolutely. And for me, that is always the primary identity, apart from having the identity of a filmmaker, of a son, of a good friend, various identities. And one of my identities is my sexual identity, which is where I say that I'm gay. So, yeah, that's also part of my identity.
Yeah. Onir, I have watched your film and I want to understand, why do you feel it's important to, uh, teach people in a way that it's not, none of your film is trying to be preachy. And that's what I love about it. So why do you think it's important to give out a message, yet stop from telling them this is how it is, or, beat my brother Nikhil or any other film? Why do you think, what makes it important for you to make it
I
successful?
think what makes it important for me is till 2018, we were criminalized by law for who we are. So obviously, all the dialogues that one had as an artist, so one of my the way I can have a dialogue is through my art, which is my cinema, and I feel that cinema is a very, very powerful medium to start dialogues, to bring in awareness, acceptance. And I was doing it because it's also about my identity. It's about equality. It's about humanity. And for me, it's always been important to assert not only once, it's not only about my own right, but as such, any marginalized group I've always been wanting to talk about. Because, like I mentioned, my most important identity is human, as a human being. So, be it women, be it people who are displaced, people who have been abused as children. They're all a part of stories that I want to tell and want to. Yes, queer becomes an important part of my storytelling because of who I am and the fact that we were criminalized by law. And the need to tell these stories is, fortunately, when I grew up accepting the straight world. No one had to make a special effort to, teach me that, okay, these are straight people. You have to treat them as equals. They also
Right.
feel like you. Those are things that came to me naturally, like it comes to the entire queer world naturally. But having grown up in a world where there was no reference of my identity in literature, in science, in cinema, in advertising, in public discourse of just talking, I realized how important it was for us to start this discourse so that people don't make us invisible. Because we don't make people invisible. It's the straight world which is making us invisible. And unfortunately, it's the straight world that needs to be educated, you know, because these
Yes.
problems are all to do with them and not with us. So unfortunately, so that our world becomes a better world, so each of us have to, through different means that we have, try and make the heteronormative world learn to be more inclusive, learn to be more kind and loving.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. Onir, what was that moment in your life when you realized that, okay, this is my identity and I need to be open about it. I need to, let the world know. Or what was that moment for you? And
I think there was
were your family supported? Was your family there to support you?
actually, I don't know for what reason, but there was never one specific moment when I decided, okay, on here, I'm going to come out. I think it was a process of growing up, of realizing at some point that, because, when I was in school, I was always falling in love with girls from the class, disastrous love affairs, and then at one point I realized, okay, I'm attracted towards guys. I didn't feel that I was doing something wrong. I didn't feel that, oh my God, what am I? It was just that anything to do with attraction, sex, everything was hush hush, at that
Yeah.
growing up
Yeah.
age. And then when, I was in college, slowly I started talking initially to my friends. And at some point, my sister and then brother, and, it was not one day. And again, I think I'm very, very, very fortunate that meet my friends, meet my father, mother, brother, sister, there was never one single moment of debating, trying to
Wow.
explain to me,
Wow.
are you sure? Or trying to say that, oh, don't you want to have a family? Don't you want to get married? Or saying that, do you want to visit a doctor? None of these discussions
Wow.
even happened once in my house. And I feel very, very lucky to have such amazing family. So I feel it empowers me. And that's why, if you really look back, I've always, when I've come into the industry, I've always been open myself because I've always had a huge lot of people showering me with love and strength, saying that we are with you and we think that you deserve a better world.
Definitely, definitely. Anil, I want you to tell me, how have you seen? Do you think we are evolving? Cinema is evolving, and I personally believe cinema is a reflection of a society. So, how do you see cinema evolving? Like, people are trying to give representation, but do you think they're doing it correctly?
I feel that, of course, there is an increase in representation, some good, a lot
Yes.
more problematic. It's also because the more we claim our space, the more there is resistance. So you have, for example, I think one very problematic thing is constantly trans characters being represented by non-trans actors. That is not
Right.
okay, because it's time that we empower trans people to. It's like, if women were still being played by men, At some point in society, in plays and all, it used to be men dressed up as women.
Yes,
And then women got empowered to come on stage and be themselves for who they are. Similarly, I think trans people need to be represented by themselves in films, one. And I feel just like it was recognized that it's important to have more and more women tell
right,
stories which were about women and about the world, because the way a woman looked into the world, a feminine gaze is different from a very male patriarchal gaze. Similarly,
right.
I feel that it's very, very important to empower the queer community to tell our own stories. Most of our stories, be it on OTT space, be it on films that are getting made, are made by straight men and women or
Exactly.
closeted, and they themselves are struggling to learn. So very often we're being put into the bracket of what they perceive us as, and everything becomes, it's always like our lives is all about being accepted by them. And I think that needs to change, because our lives are, we have happiness, joy, sadness, everything going on in spite of that world. And maybe they should start looking at it that we accept them for a change, despite all their flaws of having not being able to accept us easily. So I feel this narrative of doing us a favor by accepting us needs to change into doing yourself a favor by becoming a better human being.
Do you also feel, even if there's a representation, it's too forced? I mean, the characters are normal, but when they are representing the community, it's too forced. It's not natural, and it should be natural like everybody else. Do you feel that sometimes?
Very often it's not, it's not shown in a way where it feels that it's just a part of the spectrum. It's always
Exactly.
this, I remember even recently I was watching this very, very good series otherwise called Kora, you know. And then the last episode came when you
Yes,
suddenly see, and I was so disappointed and I felt so let down the way
I feel the same.
suddenly the gay characters start behaving. I'm like, all my life I've lived, I don't know. I don't mean that I mean, a gay character can be negative, can be evil, can be greedy, can be anything. But there was a huge problem in the way this characters came forth. And that happens, I feel, constantly in series. Again, the trans characters, the ones who are worst represented as something which is scary, which is, always shouting and screaming, and the way it's portrayed is
Exactly.
very sad when a community is fighting so hard to find space of acceptance and respect.
Exactly. I totally agree. Also, because we just spoke about how gay characters are being represented. I want and people. I am talking about straight people, and because I'm talking about educated straight people. Okay. They feel, oh, he's gay, he'll hit on me. A guy would think. I really want you to put a stop to that and tell people that okay, gays also have standards. They don't hit on every second person they meet. Please tell me something about that. Please
I
clear
think
that.
this is something that I tell at every inclusion seminar, the diversity thing. Whenever I go, I said, I think men who are a product of patriarchy, just like how they objectify women, they
Exactly.
think they are being objectified by gay men, and just like you say that yes, we have taste, and they start looking at us also like, oh, they're going to pounce on us. And I feel uh, it is also giving themselves too much of importance, one. And secondly, you know if unless you are like, suppose there's a woman who is beautiful and you admire her or play her a compliment with respect, I think it's okay. Similarly, I feel that learn to deal if a gay man tells you, hey, listen, you're looking really hot. It's okay. As long as someone does not cross the line of consent, which most I mean, I'm sure there are people, like I mentioned, that
There are
there
men
are
also,
people,
then like straight men also
exactly.
who does that.
But that is not how the entire community should be labeled. I think they need to grow up and accept the fact that desire is beautiful as long as consent is comes along with it.
Right. uh, be it, my brother Nikhil, Bas Ek Pal, Sorry Bhai. I want to understand what were the things that kept in mind while working on these films. What were those minute things you knew could have gone wrong, or you wanted to, because you understand what a person from the community feels. What were those things that you kept in mind while working on any of your films, I'd say?
One is, if you've seen my films, I feel that there's a certain way women are, for example, represented. One, uh, mostly they are the uh, characters who make change happen. Men very often are more supportive and passive. Women are more active and the ones who make change happen. So it's my brother Nikhil, it's not my sister Anu. If you think of the name itself. So even in Basekpal, the women characters are all extremely active, extremely strong, and they are not there to just adorn and make our male characters look, they have their own identity. Similarly, for me, it's very, very important that queer characters, when I look at them with the love and empathy and respect that I would expect every person to give me. So when I look at my characters, I look at them with the same, because it's very easy to be populist and make a lot of money, but I can't go into that way, be it how I portray women or how I portray marginalized characters, by being by I cannot give up my own respect for commerce.
I'll tell you something, when I look back at your films or when I watch your film, it may or may not do good on box office. I actually, as a person, as somebody who understand things, I'm not even bothered about that. But one thing I know, they're cult films. People are watching them, these films now. They are understanding, and probably 10 years later also they'll watch your films with same interest and same what I they'll get the same message. You know, and that's the beauty of your work, I would say.
Thank you.
So kudos. Okay. You told me that you've had really good family, they supported you, but what about the industry? Did you face any struggles there? How was it? What was their take when you wanted to
I
make
think
films?
initially, like a lot of things, I realize much more now. I think in the industry today, I am what I am because of a lot of friends, crew, cast who have supported me, and so, which is the beautiful part. At the same time, I feel as an industry, we are homophobic in a lot of way, in a sense that to make the kind of films I want to, there is always too many hurdles, even today, even after so many years, even after the national awards. It Nothing became easier, because everything is, earlier was box office, now it's eyeballs or OTTs, and somehow for me the stories I want to tell is not what fits into the heteronormative gaze, but what the life I'm living, the life many queer people live. And I always say that I'm not making 100 crore film for this, but whatever budget I need is very realistic. And when you're doing 100 other films, you can do a couple of these films, which is for a better world, and also these are beautiful stories. So it's not that you're just doing charity, you're also making a beautiful film. But I
Exactly.
find that lacking. And I've also realized that during all these years, though I've got international awards, traveled the world with my films, the industry awards never celebrated my work as a pioneer for the queer community. The films that came were some of the first, even the new film that I've done is a film called Pinecone, which I'm hoping will find a platform release soon, has the first out and proud queer actor playing the lead role in a Bollywood film as a gay character. So I feel
I'm
these
waiting.
are historic moments, and I wish it would be for a change that I get a call from a platform or studio saying that, hey, listen, we want this film because we are so proud of it. No, and I feel that just shows that somewhere people who are in the decision making are not more, do not think it's important enough, or are also homophobic.
I agree. I agree with both your points. Okay, so with your films, I want to understand what are the changes that you want to bring. What is that you want to just put your foot down and tell people, listen, this is what it is. So what is that?
I feel one is I want to see more queer filmmakers tell directing our films. I'm tired and sick of acceptance films, just about how the family or society is accepting us. There's much more. That's one. Two, I feel that enough of straight people playing trans roles. That's an absolute not acceptable.
Right.
That's not acceptable, and I feel that actors need to be not just directors and makers, even actors need to be answerable, and they should know that they are taking away someone else's right by doing that.
I agree. I totally
And
agree.
especially when you are in a position of power. Like recently, I'll give you an example. I'm making this series. I'm trying to make this series, which is a sequel to We Are. I Am, called We Are, and one of the stories is that of a trans person, and I'm casting a trans actor for that. And
Oh,
there was like I had sent the script to another actor who I wanted him to play opposite my trans character, and he tells me, Honor, but I love the trans character's role. Please, please, please let me play that role. And I'm like, this is so unfair. You
unfair.
don't realize that you are a bigger quote unquote star. So it is so tempting for me to drop my trans actor and just take you and make the film. Of course, I didn't do it. And I won't do it. And probably that's why I'm still struggling to get the finance. But actors also need to realize that they have so many roles that they can do. Why take away from a trans person? A trans actor does not get that option of doing everything else, right? So don't do this to someone else.
I agree. I totally agree. My last question and the most important one is what's next? What are we going to see from Honor? I mean, I wait for your films and just love how you represent, and because it's not loud, it's not in your face, it's so subtle and so beautiful to watch.
Thank you so much. I think the next release will be Pine Cone, which premiered which was the opening film at Kashish early this month, actually. 7th of June it did. Now it's doing the festivals, and hopefully soon I'll find a platform to release the film with. Apart from it, I want to this year start the sequel to my film I Am, called We Are. So I want to that'll be a series of 4 stories, which I really want. It's got delayed because of the Ministry of Defense blocking my script. But I
Okay.
want to do it, and I will do it. Apart from it, I'll be starting a web series on Sony Live, which is the investigation after the Pulwama blast. So it's a various spectrum of work, and I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, yeah. I actually, because we were talking about it, I also want to ask you, what about the censor board? Do you face a lot of problems, getting the films passed?
I have faced nightmares there. It actually has been a backward movement. 2005, my brother Nikhil got a U certificate without cuts, even when we were criminalized by law. 2011, I had to fight for 6 months to get a US certificate for I Am, because they started with wanting to cut off 21 minutes of the film, you know,
Oh,
uh, and that film went to win 2 national awards. So that's Then in 2017, my film Shab, I had to fight for a year, go to the tribunal in Delhi twice to get a US certificate, because I was told that I've shown the gay characters as normal. Okay, so it became even more difficult, yes. And you understand that how much time you lose. 1 year is a big time for a film. So financially, it's already you've lost money. And then in 2021 is when Ministry of Defense, blocked my script saying that showing a army man as gay is demeaning for the army and a threat to the country's security, which
Okay.
for me is so ridiculous and unacceptable. And it went
Yes.
up to the parliament. It was discussed in the parliament. So in a way, I feel happy that I've started a discourse, because again, films are for discourse, dialogue, where a lot of people are understanding that this is bizarre, because
Exactly.
in the army, there are doctors, teachers, or if you're saying that we are not capable of if Shikhandi was a warrior, which comes from our history, so what are we talking about? Right. Similarly, if you say it's a threat to the country's security, all the honey trap cases that we are hearing of now are about heterosexuals. So do we
Yes.
even ban that? So what is it? So it just shows that again, it's patriarchy not letting anybody they see as different. They were very resistant towards women coming into the army. And now, since women are slowly taking their rightful space, they are now diverted their attention against the queer community.
Onir, what is that one message that you would want to give my viewers? Quick message.
I think it's it's just to tell someone just try it. It's easier to love than nurture hate.
Right. Right. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you.